All right, good afternoon on this beautiful Friday. Lots of stuff going on here. I figured I would go live right before the press conference that I think everybody's ready to watch. I had to work today as well, so put that on hold for a little bit, and we'll finish up the day afterwards. But a lot of stuff going on, so I figured I would go live prior to the press conference in about 15 minutes. I figure we'll tune in. I've got it queued up already, and we'll tune into it probably 5 minutes before, but we'll kind of watch it a few times, or kind of watch throughout the next few minutes just to see where it's at. I did do some research a little bit earlier, and I am going to bring you and talk a little bit about the Reddit post that just happened as well, because I think that that's kind of an interesting thing that we definitely need to look at. I think that I'm glad that I took a screenshot of it, because I figured that they would take it down from Reddit as soon as they figured out who this guy was. There's a couple of things that I want to hit, though. First is that I don't know if the post legitimately is Bryan's. I mean, obviously we found that post early today, so I assume that it is, and especially since Reddit took it off. I've also heard of some other posts as well that are floating around out there that I haven't actually seen or screenshotted myself either. So I'll show you folks that before we jump into it. I am going to transition to my desktop so you guys can kind of see what's going on in my desktop. I also have my headset on this time. So like I said last time, I should have had it on. So anytime that we're watching this stuff together, you're not getting feedback from my speakers. So that's why I'm wearing the headset today. I've got this on mute right now, but obviously we're waiting for, essentially 4 o'clock Eastern. I'm in Central Time Zone, so I'm waiting for 3 o'clock. So that way we can kind of watch this together in the next 13 minutes. But I do want to hit where we've been at so far on this case and kind of our theories. And I wanted to do that before any information came out, just so that it's raw. So that way we can go back, analyze, what did we get right? What did we not get right? Were we looking at it? And I can already tell you right now, pretty insane the way this is going so far. I would have never guessed that it was some student that was 10 miles away at a different school that was a criminal justice student going for his PhD, had already completed his master's, and was posting some weird stuff online about getting into the mind of a criminal. He doesn't say killer. He just says before committing a crime, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. So let me transition this to my screen. I'll kind of take that off. I do have this on mute, and we'll unmute this in probably about 7 minutes, and we'll watch this together because obviously the information that's going to come out here is going to be far more important than anything that I say. So let me start here. Let's go. So here was the Reddit post, and as you can see, I took a screenshot of it. That's why I have, obviously my Adobe Illustrator up. But this was pretty freaky. So research participation needed. Hello, my name is Bryan, and I'm inviting you to participate in a research project that seeks to understand how emotions and psychological traits influence decision-making when committing a crime. In particular, the study seeks to understand the story behind your most recent criminal offense, with an emphasis on your thoughts and feelings throughout your experience. In the event that your most recent offense was not one that led to a conviction, you may still participate. Additional surveys are included after the open-ended section as to best understand your unique traits. The study should take about 15 to 20 minutes to fully complete. In bold, your identity and all answers provided are completely confidential, and the link to the survey is also an anonymous link. This research has been approved by the DeSales University IRB. Participants must be 18 years of age or older. If you opt to participate, you may terminate participation at any time and for any reason. If you have any questions about this research, you may contact the research team via email, student investigator Bryan Kohberger, and then obviously his email, and then an anonymous link. And thank you for your time. Now, obviously, a lot of these comments came out today, right? If you go and you can't see this anymore, from what I understand, they took it off of Reddit, but you could see that a lot of these comments were coming out after it was announced who it was. And it was pretty interesting. I couldn't believe it because I was just going to search his name to see who he was. And I originally found a picture on SoundCloud, and I'm still not even sure if it's the same person or not. Have some like features, but one was an artist, and they kind of look similar, but I couldn't tell you if that was the case or not. And then I think two places down is where I found the Reddit post. So I ended up screenshotting it just if I decide to make a future video on it. And then I learned not too long after that, this came out. And obviously this was 7 months ago, so this wasn't recent, but I did hear on some other forums that there might have been a recent post that came out on Reddit, which I don't have access to and I haven't seen, that kind of talks in eerie language about the crime. And I might actually have, and I'm going to pull this up for you. So let me go over here so that way we keep our place in line here. So I'll pull this up. Because I don't know, this is unconfirmed, but this was what somebody had replied to me earlier. So I'll just show you folks that. So MKG, apparently that same Reddit account posted something about how he seized an opportunity. He mentioned how he got into the house, how he made his way from room to room, something about eyeing the staircase, how he made his way out. The post was deleted, but very eerie how he just so plainly posted this, but didn't give any context for what he was talking about. It was like some kind of play-by-play in his thoughts. And again, I haven't confirmed that. I haven't seen the post, and I haven't seen any posts out there that show that. But that doesn't mean anything, right? We might learn in the next few minutes that that's how they caught the guy. That's why I wanted to talk before the press conference so we could just get our thoughts out, and then we're going to come revisit. I won't talk, I promise, throughout the entire press conference. It's not my story to tell there, so I don't want to be rude in that sense. So essentially what we're going to do is we will watch that. We'll start watching that in about 3 minutes, and then we'll come back after and just give our thoughts, and then I'll end stream from there. But, in the next 3 minutes, let me just hit a couple of things that we hit on our last stream. So our good friend Kai now, kind of butchered the full name, so we'll go by Kai, made some good points last time, and I want to point those out. So one, when we were talking about Jack Decor, Kai had said, would it be sad if, this guy's getting doxxed and getting a lot of hate, and he ends up not being a suspect or have anything to do with the murders. And, we kind of talked about that for a minute. And, I did make the comment that if he was a part of it, it wouldn't be sad. But if he wasn't, it would definitely be pretty sad. And in this case, it is a pretty sad story that he got doxxed. The other thing I want to point out, and we talked about this a little bit last time, Hoodie Guy, which we think is Jack Showalter, was also doxxed at one point. And then Joe, the vape store manager, and then even the neighbor, which in my opinion, the neighbor and Jack D did need to be questioned more, or at least more information to send out in a sense that would help us out and kind of help us determine what was going on. That looks like that wouldn't have needed to happen, because in this case, who would have thought it would be a random person from 10 miles away? Never had that as a theory. I never saw that in any videos or any theories from there either. So this is very interesting to me. And in the next 5 minutes, we're going to see what's going on with this. And what I'll do is we're going to tune in here in just a minute. And once we do that, once the press conference comes on, I will pull up my OBS and I'll put myself on mute, so that way you can't hear any background noise, whether that's my dogs or my nephew running around or whatever the case might be. And then we'll come off a mute afterwards just to kind of hit and see what we learned from that press conference. And, I don't think they're going to give a whole lot of information, just because obviously they're going to hold pretty tight to that for the case itself. But pretty interesting. And just one last thought before we jump into that is, if he's the one that did it, I really do hope that he just confesses. And, not that you could put the family at ease by any means. Like, this is a terrible tragedy that is not going to bring those 4 kids back and is not going to put the family at ease at all. But you don't want them to have to play out in a trial and have to go through this for the next couple of years, right? The last 2 months have probably been the hardest months that any of these parents, friends, families, ex-boyfriends in that matter, all of that stuff would have to go through. So we'll see if we get any information, if there was a confession or not, or where they're at with that, if they even release any of that information. But I'm curious to see how long this is going to last, and or if they're going to take any questions, because that'll be the interesting part. So let me just kind of tune in here. If anybody is in chat, just let me know if it's too loud. And we'll check it out here. And I will go full screen, so no worries. As you see, like, I'll pull this up, but what I'm going to end up doing is just turning my mic off here, so that way we've got. So that way we'll end up having no microphone while you're watching this. And then again, what I'll do here as it's going and it's transitioning into the show, I will turn my microphone off, and then we'll just watch together. You just got to let me know if it's playing good in the background for you. Like, we can adjust the volume, or if it's too loud, I can adjust it down, and then we can kind of go from there. But yeah, like desktop audio, I've got a little bit of room to play here, but it looks like it's probably a good sound right now. Then we'll just come back, give our thoughts, and then end stream there, and I'll answer any questions that you folks have, and we can do this together for sure. But again, I would say everybody's probably super excited that we've got a person of interest / now we've got a somebody that's in custody for it, right? So again, innocent until proven guilty, but we might learn a lot of information here. And my hope, and again, it's just a hope, that if this is the person, if Bryan is the person, that he gives a full confession.
With so much at stake in our world right now, we wanted to thank you for your trust and for making ABC News America's #1
news. Go full screen.
And thank you for making ABC News Live,
I'll show you
America's
the Reddit again if you haven't seen the Reddit.
News.
But basically, I pulled this Reddit a few hours ago when we learned who the person was. I guess you can't get this anymore.
After an extraordinary news-making year, thank you for making ABC's This Week America's #1 news and politics show on Sunday mornings.
So if you want to read through that, and then I'll hit the Reddit again when we
Let's
come back.
do it.
Yes, it's the show America wants, and America
should be going live here in
right
like
now.
2 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait one more minute. Once it hits 2:59, I'm going to mute my microphone, and then I will go full screen on YouTube, so that way you can see a full screen. And then we'll come back and just kind of hit what we saw. Or if I have anything, then I'll just put it in
12 to
chat.
6 Eastern every Saturday on
It's not my
ABC
story to
News
tell, and I don't want to
Live.
interrupt while they're talking.
My favorite show.
But very
All across the
interesting.
globe, the world will be celebrating the new year, and you can see it as it happens live. The global celebrations. See the new year as it comes in live. Streaming all day and night
This is
on
crazy
ABC
stuff,
News
man.
Live.
Very
We're
crazy stuff.
honored ABC's 2020 winner of 3 Emmy Awards for excellence. Thank you for making 2020 Friday night's
Close
most
to
watched
59.
and
I
most
am muting
honored
my
news
microphone,
magazine.
and I will go full screen.
So
If
much
you need
happening these days.
any
it's
kind
hard
of
to keep
audio
up.
adjustment
Things
or
change
video
hour by
adjustment, just
hour,
let me know, and we
minute
can
by
make those
minute.
on the
The
fly.
historic weather that's now
So
unfolding.
microphone
The
is on.
worries on Wall Street.
We're bringing you the right now.
Been a nationwide teacher shortage.
The Right Now look at the day ahead.
An alert this morning for dog owners.
And the key takeaways from the biggest stories.
World News Now and America This Morning, America's #1 early morning news.
Today does feel a little different.
Early mornings on ABC News Live.
What you need to know right now on GMA3. The new winter storms on the move, heading right toward this weekend's New Year's Eve celebrations.
The countdown to the big moment in Times Square on this New Year's Eve, as preps intensify for the first full-scale celebration here since the pandemic began. And the name bringing so much joy around the world. Pele, one of the first globally recognized sports stars, honoring the man known as the King of Soccer with those who know him well.
NASA celebrating the nation's first Native American woman astronaut, and our conversation from the International Space Station.
And hitting a useful note, the veteran music executive on personal and professional success and making faith a cornerstone.
The war in Ukraine forced my family to flee. My sister, mother, and grandmother left their
For anyone just joining, I just muted my mic. I just switched just because I didn't think they were picking it up on ABC yet, but it looks like the Fox one hasn't went yet either, so we're probably just waiting. I'll go back on mute here in a second. Maybe they just weren't ready to start yet, but I haven't seen it on, at least not on this one. We'll just kind of...
Kohberger resides in Pullman, Washington, and is a graduate student at Washington State University. We will provide as much information as we can about the extradition to Idaho and the criminal process. However, due to Idaho state law, we are limited in what information we can release today until Kohberger has his initial appearance in Idaho court. I want to express my appreciation to our local community, the people of Idaho, and those throughout our nation who provided information to help us investigate these murders has been very impressive. We've received over 19,000 tips, and we've conducted over 300 interviews. To recap this case, on the evening of November 12th, Kaylee and Madison arrived home at about 1:56 a.m. after visiting a local bar and street food vendor. Ethan and Xana were at the Sigma Chi house before arriving home around 1:45 a.m. The two surviving roommates had also been in the community but returned around 1 a.m. On the morning of November 13th, a 911 call was made at 11:58 a.m. reporting an unconscious person at the residence. The call came from inside the home from one of the surviving roommates' cell phones. Moscow police responded and found 2 victims on the 2nd floor and 2 victims on the 3rd floor. On November 17th, autopsies were conducted and the Latah County coroner confirmed the identity of the 4 victims. The cause and manner of death was homicide by stabbing. Some had defensive wounds, and each had been stabbed multiple times. These murders have shaken our community, and no arrest will ever bring back these young students. However, we do believe justice will be found through the criminal process. This was a very complex and extensive case. We developed a clear picture over time, and we stand assured that the work is not done, but be assured the work is not done. This has just started. Since November, we have remained laser focused on pursuing every lead in our pursuit of justice for the victims and their families. I recognize the frustration with the lack of information that's been released. However, providing any details in this criminal investigation might have tainted the upcoming criminal prosecution or alerted the suspect of our progress. We will continue to provide as much information as we can as the process moves forward. Today, I want to specifically thank our dedicated Moscow Police Department detectives, patrol officers, the Idaho State detectives, the Idaho State troopers, and their crime lab technicians and scientists, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation for the resources and personnel to conduct this massive investigation. It was the dedication of them and the persistence and the numerous hours that led to an arrest. Fortunately, these highly skilled people worked together as a cohesive team to solve this case. I also want to thank our community and the nation. Over the past 6 weeks, I've been continually reminded of how much our community cares. Locally, public support has been exceptional with kind words, food for investigators, and letters of support. You will never know how much your words of encouragement help us through these trying times. I appreciate each of you and each of your kindness. Agencies and individuals from across the nation have reached out to us to express their support to this department. I'm reminded how our Moscow community, our families, and the nation has been impacted by this daily. Finally, I do want to thank our media partners for the help. You kept this in the news, you helped us with tips, you kept things going, and we truly appreciate that. And you are the product of those 19,000 tips that we received, which is an impressive number. I would like to invite Bill Thompson, the county prosecutor, up at this time.
Good afternoon, folks. My name is Bill Thompson. I'm the Latah County prosecutor. And it's sad to be here, but happy to be here at the same time. As Chief Fry indicated, a criminal complaint was filed yesterday here in Latah County, charging the defendant, Mr. Kohberger, with 4 counts of first-degree murder, in addition to felony burglary, which involves entering the residence with the intent to commit the crime of murder. Mr. Kohberger, and let me preface, there is a pending case now in court, and I and my office and the investigators have to live with the restrictions that our Supreme Court places on pretrial publicity. That said, I promise you we will share with you, through the court process or otherwise, whatever we are allowed to. I just appreciate your patience on that. The factual basis for the charges are summarized in what's called a probable cause affidavit that is on file with the court. According to the rules of the Idaho Supreme Court, that is sealed until Mr. Kohberger is physically back in Latah County and has been served with the Idaho arrest warrant. At that time, we expect that that affidavit will be available to you so you can share the true facts with all of your readers and your watchers and your listeners and all of the people who are interested and really need to know what's going on. So please have patience with us on that. We hope to get that to you as soon as we can. As far as Mr. Kohberger, I can share with you that he is a graduate student at Washington State University and has an apartment residence over at Pullman. He has had an initial appearance in front of a judge in Pennsylvania. He is being held without bond, and the warrant from our magistrate judge here also provides for no bond. We understand that he's scheduled to be back in court in Pennsylvania next Tuesday afternoon, and that a public defender has been appointed for him there. The process at this point is, since he was arrested in another state, he has the opportunity to either waive extradition and return voluntarily to the state of Idaho, or if he prefers not to waive extradition, then we will initiate extradition proceedings through our governor's office. If we do that, it can take a while for him to get here. So again, I'm asking for your patience and understand that's just the way the system works. Once he gets here, he'll have an initial appearance with our magistrate. They'll deal with issues such as making sure counsel is, competent counsel is representing him, and the case will be scheduled for further hearings. Your primary source of factual information is going to be the court record, because that's what the Supreme Court says we need to refer you to. So please pay attention to what's going on in court and have people there to watch and hear what's being said. As an attorney, myself and my office, we are limited on what we are allowed by the courts to say outside of the courtroom. So please just work with us. Finally, as the chief indicated, this is not the end of this investigation. In fact, this is a new beginning. You all now know the name of the person who has been charged with these offenses. Please get that information out there. Please ask the public, anyone who knows about this individual, to come forward, call the tip line, report anything you know about him to help the investigators and eventually our office and the court system understand fully everything there is to know about not only the individual, but what happened and why. Next, I'll introduce Colonel Ked Wells from the Idaho State Police. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Kedrick Wills. I serve as the director of the Idaho State Police and certainly want to express our appreciation for your attendance here today. These tragic murders took 4 young, vibrant lives from our community. Nothing we do can bring them back. The only thing that we can do in law enforcement to honor their memories that we know of is to bring this to a successful conclusion. This has been a very difficult time for the families, the university, the community, and the state of Idaho. However, it is also proven that communities come together in tough times. Certainly appreciate the support of the local community and our national audience that has been following us as our investigators have worked through this case. I'm thankful also to you, the media partners, who have helped keep this case in the forefront that generates the tips and we hope will continue to generate information that will help us to a conclusion of this proceeding. I'd like to express our appreciation on behalf of the Idaho State Police to Chief Fry, his leadership, and the entire Moscow Police Department for the way that they handled this from the very beginning. He directed the right people to the right positions that led us to this conclusion today. I've had the utmost confidence in this investigation and in Chief Fry as well as in Mr. Bill Thompson and the Latah County Prosecutor's Office, who've been a great partner throughout this. Nothing has deterred the commitment of the investigators who've worked on this case, regardless of the organization they represent. It's been very trying and very difficult, as you know, that it has been on those investigators as they do the tedious work that they're so good at doing. The partnerships is what's led here as well. The partnerships between Moscow Police Department, I'd like to express our appreciation with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, specifically the Special Agent in charge out of the Salt Lake City Division, Dennis Rice, and also the work that happened in the last 24 hours in Pennsylvania with the arrest with the Pennsylvania State Police and Colonel Evanchik with the Pennsylvania State Police. We appreciate what they've done across the nation to help us as well. As Bill shared, this investigation is far from over. In fact, I appreciate what he shared, that this is not an ending, but rather a new beginning. The difference now is, as he shared, that we are dictated what information we can share by the court process and by laws in our state of Idaho. And so we will share, as he shared, Mr. Thompson is absolutely committed to share everything he can share through the court process. We've got to make sure that we don't get in front of that process. And we really deeply appreciate everybody's support here. The relationships that were forged here and the partnerships that were forged have led to this. And based on that is why we're here today. And we continue to believe that the best way we can honor these 4 lives that have been taken is to make sure that we have a successful outcome here. One of the partnerships that's been forged throughout this is a partnership with the University of Idaho. And on that, I'd like to introduce the president of the University of Idaho, Mr. Scott Green.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Scott Green, President of the University of Idaho. Today's news and arrest is a welcome one. It's a relief to our university, our community, and our extended Vandal family. The outpouring of support over the past 6 weeks helped sustain us during the most trying time. It provided the strength that helped us navigate the international scrutiny visited on our students and employees. We are truly thankful for the compassion and acts of kindness shown to our community. Kindness is contagious, and it provided the light that reclaimed ground lost to evil and darkness. We first want to acknowledge and thank Governor Little for the early promise of financial support that enabled the university to secure our campus and focus on helping our students and our employees in the wake of the crimes. We also appreciate the Idaho State Police and the highly visible security presence that brought comfort and calm to a community shocked and confused by the senseless crimes. We never lost faith that this case would be solved and are grateful for the hard work of the Moscow Police Department and their law enforcement partners. Vast and committed FBI resources brought important expertise to this complex case. Across the board, dedicated, highly competent personnel worked this case to arrest. This crime has nevertheless left a mark on our university, our community, and our state. While we cannot bring back Maddie, Kaylee, Zaina, and Ethan, we can thoughtfully and purposefully carry their legacy forward in the work that we do. Our students come first, and that was proven each and every day of this investigation. We are committed to safely delivering the college town atmosphere, campus experience, and high-touch quality education for which the University of Idaho is known. With time, we will heal. We will move forward together, and we will remain Vandal strong. With that, I'd like to turn it back over to Chief Fry.
So now we will open the floor to questions. However, I want to remind everyone, as Prosecutor Bill Thompson explained, any factual information regarding the arrest of Kohberger is currently sealed per Idaho law and will not be released until he has appeared in an Idaho court. Please formulate your questions accordingly. I recognize there are a lot of questions, and I will try to answer as many of them as I can.
Lauren Patterson, Northwest Public Broadcasting, Spokane Public Radio. I realize the records are sealed. I guess I'm not too familiar with how it works, but can you tell us what tip, what lead, what piece of evidence really led you all the way from Idaho to the suspect in Pennsylvania?
As I've said in the past, that's part of our investigation, and we won't be releasing that at this time. We will have those answers. We'll have them as soon as we can make those available to you.
Then a quick follow-up and a two-parter. Is our community safe, or is law enforcement still on the search for other suspects who might be involved in this attack?
What I can tell you is we have an individual in custody who committed these horrible crimes, and I do believe our community is safe, but we still need to be vigilant, right? We still have talked about this in the past. We always need to be aware of our surroundings and make sure that we're aware of what's going on.
Hi, Chief. How soon into the investigation did police and law enforcement begin to spot Mr. Kohberger as a potential suspect? And a follow-up, how many tips, if you can say, were specifically related to Mr. Kohberger?
To the tip part, honestly, I can't answer that question, so I'm not even going to speculate on that. On the other part, that's part of our investigation, and it will come out. I'd like the mic to please come right over here.
Thank you. Dana Griffin with NBC News. Can you confirm that Kohberger asked whether or not anyone else had been arrested when he was in custody?
I cannot confirm that, or I'm not sure of that information, but that would still be a part of our investigation.
Did CODIS initially return any hits on this guy?
That's still part of our investigation, and that will come out. If we could get somebody over here, please.
And then one final question. Is there any message to the online sleuths who slandered and harassed people who they believed were responsible?
There was a lot of speculation going on, and we've always said from the very beginning that we're the official message that comes out, and to pay attention to what we're putting out there to the press.
I'm Nancy Liu with News Nation, and we were over at the house this morning, and you told us that the remediation would begin today. It was suddenly stopped. Can you tell us why?
Yes. The house cleanup has been halted, and that came by a legal request from the court.
Christina Corbin, Fox News. Chief, have you identified a motive?
That is part of the investigation, and that will come out as we continue the investigation. But what we still ask is for people to continually send us things in the tip line. We are still looking for more information. We're still trying to build that picture, just like we have stated all along. We're putting all the pieces together, and that will help.
Chief Veronica Miracle with CNN. Any indication that the suspect knew the victims?
That's part of the investigation as well. It won't be something that will come out at this point in time, but as we continue the investigation and as this case goes to trial, that will be brought forth.
Have you spoken to the families? Can you tell us what they've told you today?
Are you talking the victims' families? Yeah, we have reached out to the victim's family as we always do. We've done that daily, and we've continued to have contact with them.
Hey, Nate Sanford, you mentioned earlier that you're still seeking tips about Bryan and that people should still share whatever information they have. Can you speak at all about what specifically people should be reaching out for, like if they know something?
I would say anything and everything. As we've said all along, we know what tips we're looking for. We will take those tips and we will have professionals look at those and decide which pieces of those we need to use for our case. So we ask that everybody would do that.
Angela Palermo, Idaho Statesman. Your department and other investigators on the case took a lot of flack for keeping information close to your chest. Are you glad that you did that, and were you worried about tipping the suspect off?
I will 100% stand behind the way that we handled this investigation. And this all started from day one with our patrol officers arriving on scene, locking down the scene, us calling in the Idaho State Police, us calling in the FBI, and keeping information that was pertinent to this case very, very tight. We want to have a situation where when this goes to trial, there is no doubt that we've done everything right, and we've slowed down, and we've continued to slow down. We'll continue to do that.
Hey, Chief. Have you guys found the murder weapon or the Hyundai Elantra?
So we are still looking for all pieces of evidence, but we are still looking for the weapon. And I will say that we have found an Elantra.
Stephanie Becker with CNN. Can you tell what it was like when you got the phone call when the police told you that they had your suspect?
I can tell you, for a lot of law enforcement, it was a fairly sleepless couple of days with as we were leading up to everything that we were doing. But what I can tell you is I have faith in those agencies across the nation. I have faith in our officers. I have faith in the FBI, and they did a great job. But sure, there was some times, even throughout the day, that we were always concerned.
Hi, Chief. Danya back at CBS News. Can you talk a little bit more about the suspect's connection to Pennsylvania?
All I know is that he lives in Pennsylvania.
Chief Guy Tannenbaum from Nonstop Local KHQ in Spokane. More about the Elantra. We saw reports that you mentioned that you recovered an Elantra, but can you specify where that was found? And we know that that was one of the biggest pieces of information you were asking from the public to tip. Were you able to provide an information on whether those tips led to this seizure of an Elantra?
That's still part of the investigation that will come out in the future.
Chief Glenn Mosley, Idaho Public Radio here in Moscow. The additional police presence in town and on campus, semester's coming. Is that going to continue?
You will continue to see state troopers in the area. You know, we're talking to Latah County as well. You will see a presence of us that we're always have up on campus. We have assigned officers to that. So you will continue to see a law enforcement presence. I'm going to take two more questions.
Hi, Chief. Julie Scott, ABC News. Can you tell us if you eventually had a license plate number to the Elantra and how you tracked it to Pullman?
That's still part of the investigation that will come out.
Chief, hi, Matt Lovelace with the Murrow College of Communication. I want to ask about Mr. Kohberger as a graduate student at WSU. Are you aware of if he returned to campus after November 13th? And have you had any communication with departments on the WSU campus about his attendance?
So some of that is going to be followed up as we continue our investigation. We'll be asking some of those questions, but that'll come out in the near future. So what I do want to do is I want to thank you all. You really have been the national voice for us. You've given us the opportunity to get many, many tips, and I do appreciate everything you've done, and we'll continue to look forward to working with you in the future on this. So I'd like to thank you for that, and thank you for your time.
All right, that's pretty wild. I'm going to put this on mute. We'll leave it running in the background. I took some notes, so I just kind of want to cover some of this stuff, and then I'll end stream on that. I will pull up the Reddit post one more time before I get off as well, and just read through that, so that way you folks can see it. Crazy stuff. So let's unpack some of the stuff that was said right there. So one, they actually released a little more information than I thought they were going to, which was pretty interesting to me. I thought that they weren't going to say a whole lot, and he didn't, right? Obviously, the chief didn't say a whole lot because there's not a whole lot that the chief can say at that point. We know that a lot of this stuff is going to go to trial. But the first thing that stuck out, and this was like more midway, so I'm going to go not really in order here, but was the Elantra was found. So my curiosity stands out. Like, if the Elantra was found and Bryan was tied to it, then does that mean he had a white Elantra or had a friend that had a white Elantra? I think it would be safe to assume that. But again, that's just an assumption. No murder weapon found. That's pretty crazy, right? That's murder weapons are usually smoking guns. So I would figure that there's got to be some DNA or something that's in there. But like the chief said, he can't speak to that. So he had that question, and, he deflected it, right? Rightfully so. Here was a big one. So there was a couple of things in here. So first and foremost, so Bryan was arraigned today in Pennsylvania. He's got a court date again on Tuesday. And at that point, he can waive extradition and come back to Idaho on his own, or he can fight extradition, and that could take some time. Now, why this is significant is because we all know that the information that we're really looking for is essentially in the probable cause affidavit. And I hit that because if you go back to the Delphi murders, right? I know it's a totally separate case, but you look at Richard Allen, there was a lot of people online that were saying, hey, Richard Allen had talked to a conservation officer and not an officer of the law. But if you actually look at the probable cause affidavit in that case, it doesn't say that it's a conservation officer, right? And so that leads me to believe that there might be some speculation out there on that one. And the actual information is in the probable cause affidavit. And the reason why I bring that case up is if it's not in writing, it doesn't matter. And when the prosecutor in this case, in the Idaho 4 case, came forward, he said the same thing. So he said, the Supreme Court will only allow us to release information that is in that probable cause affidavit or in the documents of the court. And I say this all the time, right? Even in a press release or a press conference, if a chief comes out or a lawyer comes out or a prosecutor comes out and they say something, and whatever it is that they say, right, it could be true, could be 100% true, but when you go back and look at the case, if it's not in the case documents and the case files like that, then it doesn't matter, right? So that's a huge miss. So in this one, I think they're doing the right thing because they're saying, hey, we're not telling you anything until the probable cause affidavit comes out, and that could take some time, and that could all be dependent on if extradition is waived or extradition is voluntary, and when Bryan gets in front of, essentially the Idaho magistrate, right? So that was pretty huge because they're basically setting us up saying, hey, it's going to take some time. But based off of that, let me just say this. So we all want the information. I would like to have the information as well. I think there's a couple of things that are happening here that are really good, right? One, you have a suspect now, right? You have a person of interest let's just say a suspect, because person of interest wouldn't be in custody, but you have a suspect in custody. That tells me that it's a lot safer on the streets right now, and I think that that's a good thing, right? Doesn't matter how long it takes. Now it's the court case thing that's going to come up. These take time to prepare cases, both on the prosecutor side and on the defense side. And it sounds like Bryan was appointed an attorney as well. So I don't know what that's going to look like going from Pennsylvania to Idaho, if there's going to be transfer of ownership there or whatever that case might be. But we know it's going to take some time, but that's okay. Suspect is in custody. right? And if we're confident, we're going to find out more of that information coming up. If you looked at the chief's mannerism, he is very confident that this is the person that did it. Not to say that they haven't ever been wrong before, but I will say, based off my last video, Idaho does have an 80% capture rate when it comes to murders. That's one of the highest in the United States of America, right? Typically, it's going to be between 50 and 60% prosecution, or 40 and 50% where murderers go loose. Idaho is not the case. 20% go free, 80% get prosecuted. And when I say go free, I mean that don't get caught or never get solved. So it's not like they were caught and then the case was fumbled. What I'm saying is that we talked about that on the last video. So that's going to be pretty interesting as well. There is a couple of things that I do want to hit that I think that the chief kind of needs to take some ownership for. I will say, you know, he did keep it pretty lighthearted when he was talking about online sleuths and true crime lovers like me, you know, and making theories and things like that. He did keep it pretty tasteful because there was some theories out there that were pretty crazy. And we all know, we talked about it before, look at everybody that got doxxed, right? And we saw from our viewer in here, one of our subscribers and our good friend Kai, that came out and pointed out some things in pictures and pointed out some things that, you know, said, hey, this would be really terrible if Jack D wasn't guilty of this or had nothing to do with this, right? And I think that was a really good point. And the chief could have really roasted some folks on that and chose not to, but definitely did have a smile, a smirk, and some vindication of what they've been doing. A couple of things that I think they could have done better is specific to quote unquote hoodie guy, which was essentially Jack Showalter. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but they never actually said his name if you actually look at it in the media, right? We just assumed a lot of stuff, or the media came up with some names. They could have released that other video that would have shown that he had walked up with the girls so he didn't look so suspicious, and I think that would have stopped him from getting doxxed. And then I think with Jack D, I think you got to have enough foresight to say, yeah, we do want to prosecute the person, but some sort of statement to come out and say, hey, look, you know, hey, he was cleared, but, you know, maybe a little bit more power or a little bit more sentiment behind that of, we are 100% confident that Jack D doesn't have anything to do with this, or 90% confident, or whatever the case is. Because again, like Kai said in our previous stream on Wednesday, you know, it'd be really sad if he didn't have anything to do with it. And it's hard not to think that he wouldn't have, right? The timing looks bad. Some of the things that happened didn't look good. But again, you know, I just think a few of those things could have been covered, but that's okay, right? The good news is that they have a suspect. That's the good news. Now it's going to be, and my hope, and I say hope because we'll talk about this guy's background in just a second. My hope is that he confesses if he's the one that did it, right? And that he makes it easier on the families, because they're going through a terrible time, especially these last 60 to 70 days have got to be just absolutely horrible for them. Why make them go through extradition? Why make them go through a full trial? All of that stuff. But there's evil people out there that will do that. So my hope is that he won't do that, right? So that's going to be pretty important. So, okay. Sorry about that. Just had somebody popping in the room for a second. So a couple of things that I wanted to hit based off of that. I went and found this earlier when I was doing research. I think the information had come out. I can't remember. It was probably 9 or 10 o'clock this morning. And I was working, so I didn't have a lot of time to go see this. I actually had to find it on my phone and then take a snapshot of it. And I think it's been taken down on Reddit. But when I read through this really freaked me out. So first and foremost, and I read this at the start, so if you're with me at the start, bear with me. I know I'm doing it again, but for people that are just joining, research participation needed. Hello, my name is Brian, and I'm inviting you to participate in a research project that seeks to understand how emotions and psychological traits influence decision-making when committing a crime. In particular, This study seeks to understand the story behind your most recent criminal offense with an emphasis on your thoughts and feelings throughout your experience. In the event that your most recent offense was not one that led to a conviction, you may still participate. Additional surveys are included after the open-ended section as to best understand your unique traits. The study should take about 15 to 20 minutes to fully complete. This was crazy to me when I read this. Now, I did hear, and you saw in some of the comments that I had pulled up before, and I'll show this once again. Let's go over here. Oh, a lot of replies on my comment here, but let's scroll down. This one kind of freaked me out too, and I haven't seen anything, but MMKG says, apparently the same Reddit account posted something about how he seized an opportunity. He mentioned how he got into the house, how he made his way from room to room, something about eyeing, quote unquote, the staircase, how he made his way out. The post was deleted, but very eerie how he just so plainly posted this, but didn't give any context for what he was talking about. It was like some kind of play-by-play of his thoughts. So I haven't actually seen that one on Reddit. Obviously, they took a lot of the Reddit stuff down. So, you know, and you're seeing some of these replies. I haven't seen these because we were watching this. So I'll go through these a little bit later. But you can follow me if you want to see some of the stuff that I post on YouTube. Obviously, I've got a pretty small community, but it is pretty interesting to see some of these thoughts. But if that was the case, that's very eerie as well. A couple other things that I thought were pretty crazy. And I saw out there, again, speculation. I saw that some people were speculating that Bryan's sister had lived next door to the Idaho 4 house. That I can't find anywhere. So again, that's speculation that could come out later. It might not come out at all. But I'm seeing that float around on Twitter quite a bit. I probably should have pulled that up, but that is not factual information, right? Or at least any facts that I could find. So there is some information that's rolling out there that's kind of interesting, but pretty freaky stuff so far. And I will say, and I'll state it again, you know, we did it previous to this video. I would have never have thought in a million years in my wildest dreams that it would be a criminal justice student that lived 10 miles away that ended up showing up to this house. Now, here's some of the questions I have that we're obviously not going to learn for a couple of months, and that's okay. Again, I'm just happy that they have a suspect. But one, how was he tied to the house? That's going to be very interesting, right? Was it random, or had he been there previously, or did he have friends in the area, and or had he ever visited the house before? This also leads into the theories of he might have been in the house prior, or he might have had a friend there, whatever the case might be. I don't know what that looks like, but somehow he gets to that house, and that's pretty crazy. Here's another thought that was going through my mind when they put up the picture previous to going into this press conference. It's a 3-floor house, right? You've got the 3rd floor where obviously murders happened. You had the 2nd floor where murders happened. Then you had the 1st floor where nothing had happened and the dog was on the 1st floor. So my question becomes, you know, because this is starting to sound a little bit more random / targeted, like he may have targeted the house, but he may not have known somebody was on the 1st floor, or maybe he panicked after the first 2 floors, or maybe the dog deterred him from going downstairs. Either way, think of how lucky and fortunate those people on the 1st floor were, that nothing had happened to them. And we'll come back and watch this video in a couple of months when we know more information, just to kind of compare, were we on the right path, were we not? You know, obviously we're not accusing anybody. We won't ever on my channel accuse anybody just because we don't want to get anybody doxxed, as that can be very dangerous. But it is very interesting points to think about. And really some of that stuff is going to want to make me stay up at night just thinking through, like, wow, imagine being those 2 folks. Imagine being the one that had to call it in at 11:58 the next morning anyways. That'd be devastating. But to go the rest of your life knowing that that happened while you were downstairs. And I was seeing yesterday and the day before a lot of people talking online about how did they sleep through it, you know, that kind of stuff. I think, what was it, Crime and Law, or Law and Crime, sorry, had a feature of an investigator coming on and kind of explaining how you would sleep through that if you were passed out versus sleeping. And it's very feasible that you would sleep through that. You know, for me, thinking through it, especially when I was that age, It would have been easy to sleep through stuff like that, especially if there's people coming and going all the time. You don't think anything of it. You're going to sleep through it. But now for the rest of your life, you're probably not going to sleep sound ever again. So we got to think about those two folks as well, right? Because that's going to be really tough to see and go through life that way. But what I'll promise you is we'll keep up to date on these. I also want to hear your feedback too. I'm still going to do, like I said, my videos of missing people. We're going to keep focusing on that. I don't think there's a lot of YouTube channels out there that focus on cold cases that are missing. Typically, I go 5 to 15 years back, but we've went as far back as 40 years in the early 80s, and we're going to continue to bring those videos. But I'm going to go from twice a week down to once a week because my Wednesday videos typically do a lot better than my Sunday videos. My Sunday videos aren't getting a lot of traction, and that's okay, but it takes a lot of time to build those videos. And then we're going to increase our streams to twice a week, and I'm just trying to figure out what days. So if you are watching this and there's a specific time of day you would like to see, just leave that down in the comments and I'll take those into considerations. I do work a full-time job Monday through Friday. So, typically it's got to be after 4 p.m. on any one of those days. And then Saturdays and Sundays are definitely open for me. Most of the time I do work some Saturdays, but I definitely want to get those live streams, and we'll do more current cases, and we'll bring, obviously the Idaho 4 was a big case, but we'll look a lot more at current events all around the U.S. So that being said, I do appreciate you folks for tuning in. We had a great stream on Wednesday, a lot of interactivity. It was fun to see that. We are seeing the channel grow. We're almost at 50 subscribers. We're only 65 or 70 days into this, so that's almost 1 subscriber per day, and we are getting a lot of views as well. We've hit almost 4,000 views in that time. We are a small community and a small channel, and yes, I'm probably putting 30 to 40 hours a week in on the channel itself, and we're going to continue to do that to grow as it's a passion project. But we want to grow the right way and get our community involved and do it the way that you want it, so that way it's entertaining to you and we're bringing in relevant information to you, so your feedback is imperative. So on that note, I'm your host, Tim Sahlberg, and I definitely want to hear from you. Also, if you don't ever want to comment or you want to keep it private, you can always send me a private message. You can find me essentially on Twitter. You can find me my email on YouTube, or you can just send me a message on YouTube as well. Love to hear from everybody. So on that note, I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. If anything else breaks, I will come live, but my next live session is going to be scheduled for next Wednesday.